When people learn I was a police officer, I get three reactions. The first one is always, you don't look like a policeman. Okay, you're thinking that. Thank you. This is really a polite way of saying, you're too small to be a police officer. And they're right. I have gained a few inches now, but back then, there was very little room on my waist because it was full of equipment. My hat was too big, and my hands were too small to hold a gun right. So I held it cockeyed. And I learned strange skills, like being able to reach into my pocket and pull out exactly 6 bullets to get in my gun, reload, and shoot in the time allotted for qualification. This is a skill of which I'm quite proud, but have not been able to find use for it. So, since that time, since I'm an old woman, I get to use my notes. I am the oldest speaker. I do remember thinking once about being small. I was sitting on a man's arm. My partner and I had been eating pizza for lunch at the Pizza Hut, and this guy had acted out in the parking lot on a night, and we were obliged to do something about it. So he was lying on his back, spread eagle, in the parking lot, with one handcuff on, which is to say the handcuffing part had not gone on. My partner was on that arm, and I was on the other, with all of my 115 pounds on his wrist, when I felt myself starting to lift up off the ground. And I looked at my partner and I said, I should have finished eating that pizza. The second question I get is, how in the world did you end up doing that? It all began at my granny's knee, where I learned the secret of the universe. And that is that books can take you anywhere, anytime, without boundaries. Books awoke in me the desire to go beyond me every day. My first love was science fiction. At night, I dreamed that a UFO would land in the backyard and offer me the trip of a lifetime. And I would have gone too, as long as they let me take my dog. In my youth, at the local library, you could only borrow 5 books at a time on a library card. So I borrowed my sister's card, my brother's card, my mother's card, and my father's card, and I picked out about 25 books each time we went on our bi-weekly trip to the library. It wasn't long before I had read every science fiction book in the youth section. Our library had a rule that children were not allowed in the adult section. I guess because there was a possibility there might be something. I was a good girl. I didn't break rules. In kindergarten, I made gold stars for behavior. But I snuck over to the adult section and started reading on the adult side. Since my UFO was proven to be late in arriving, I took the reins. I decided at age 10 what my life career was going to be. I would be an astronaut and meet the aliens on their own terms in outer space. In preparation for this, I wrote a letter to NASA asking them what courses I should take in college in order to be best prepared to be an astronaut. My father intercepted the letter and sat me down for a talk, in which he told me that I could not be an astronaut because my eyesight would disqualify me. I was heartbroken. My mother tried to encourage me and tell me, she suggested that perhaps I could be part of the NASA support ground team. But I couldn't bear the thought of watching someone else ride that rocket. As an aside, I get sweaty and elevated. Probably a good thing. Somewhere between the age of 10 and 14, I realized I really wanted to be a writer. But my father advised that I should have a career where I could survive. And so I followed my mother's heart and majored in social work in school. For my master's thesis, I picked the police social work program because I had married an ex-cop in husband experiment number 1. And I figured his buddy to fill out all the questionnaires on the survey for my master's thesis. And about this time, I started to write stories and send them off for publication. And collect rejections. However, the police chief read my paper and invited me to come to work for the police department as a grant writer. It was not exactly what I had in mind. It was a job. So I did. I was young, suburban girl, naive, and other than the social work program, I knew nothing about being a police officer. So I talked the chief into allowing me to ride with the officers in a patrol car in order to learn what I was supposed to be writing grants about. And I soon realized that it was a lot more fun being in a patrol car than writing grants. And also, I like helping people in crisis. So I took the test for police officer in order to go to the academy as a rookie cadet. Now, as a grant writer, I was on a first-name basis with the city councilors, the mayor's staff, and the police brass. In looking at my career, I can see that I worked my way from the top to the bottom. There was one other challenge that I had to face. The Supreme Court had just struck down the height and weight requirement for police officers. However, they still require uncorrected 20/20 duty. And I was not to be denied this time. While I was waiting for the technician to arrive to give me my exam without my glasses, I went up to the chart and memorized the 20/20. The third thing that people say to me is, did the policeman accept you? Remember, this was almost 40 years ago. But in my perception, at that time, there were 3 categories of police. Category A did not believe women could be or should be in policing whatsoever. Category B felt that, well, it was okay for women to be in juvenile services or work traffic, but that was it. And category C made up their own mind who could be with it. Also bear in mind that I was a rookie and a certain amount of testing is given to every rookie, regardless of gender or race or anything else. But I can remember at least 3 instances where I was tested. The first time time, I was only maybe 3 nights out of my training car. So I had a new partner, and we got a burglary alarm call. We were the first car on the scene. And my partner got out of the car, and I really wanted to get out and stay with him. That baby behind me. And he was probably thinking the same thing as he fit into category B. However, I took a deep breath and jumped out of the passenger side of the car and announced, "I'll take the back." So in the back of this house, alone, I took position behind the biggest tree I could find, which was about the size of my arm. And I tried to keep my gun from wobbling too much, and I prayed that nobody would come running out of that house, because in those days we had a fleeing felon law, and that meant that if he didn't stop, I would be expected to shoot him. Fortunately, my partner showed up in the back of the house after searching the house. And fortunately, I did not shoot him. Back at the car, he looked at me with a kind of strange look, and he said 2 words that I'll never forget. "You're all right." Second test was to kill a bowling. It's only later that I realized that this was a setup. One does not normally find a bowling pin on a police firing range. The challenge was to see if I could knock over that pin from 25 yards, which is about a quarter of a football field. Fortunately, I had no idea how hard that was. Now, I had graduated at the top of my class in the academy, which was a score that was comprised of academic, firearms scores, and physical training. But many of the officers apparently did not think those scores were for real, because they knew I had been working up in the chief's office. Police officers are very suspicious, and I did hold a gun. So I took aim and fired, and the bowling pin fell right over. Well, by the look on those guys' faces, you could tell that they thought that was an accident. And they asked me to do it again. And this time, the pin wobbled around for several very suspenseful seconds before knocking over. Well, neither of those gentlemen offered to show me how it was done. Another time, I was standing outside the open building with several police officers, and one very large man took the opportunity to expound on how women did not belong in policing. He was a category A. And that was because they couldn't handle an aggressor, much less stress in general. So with a sneer to his fellow officers, he said, "Watch this." And he started something. Let me digress a little bit. In the academy in physical training, my instructor suggested that I take martial arts. Well, I did, and my martial arts instructor and husband experiment number 2. I had very little opportunity, really, to use those skills, perhaps because I was small and I carried a big gun. However, I did learn a few principles. And one of those is that timing is everything. So I'm standing at the police car with my back to it, And there are people on either side of me. And this man is coming at me. I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I called on that training. And because he was a big man, and I'm small, when I lifted my knee, it hit right under his groin as he was stepping down. Timing is everything. My knowledge, that was the last overt test. In the years that followed, as I rose up in ranks, eventually to captain, I did not have many of those types of calls. I worked just about everywhere in the department, except for traffic and juvenile. And there are many stories that you can imagine, some of which I will not tell. Not too long ago, I celebrated my 25th anniversary with husband number 3. And I realized my dream to become an author. Experts will tell you that in order to be successful, you should pick one genre and stick to it. But I followed where interest and passion drew me. And with the magic of words, I can travel to exotic countries and cultures, to distant past, and the far-flung future, where I finally got to meet my aliens. And I've learned an important life lesson. The barrier between the juvenile section and the adult does not exist. Don't listen when people tell you. Thank you.